I have a question about what you do in the film and the preview. I've seen you go like, you kind of put your hands up and you go like that.
I knew exactly what you were going to do when you said somebody's going to have to hold the mic.
What does that mean?
Okay. Somebody's going to have to hold the mic for me. This relates to the earlier question about people with special needs. One of the ways that I like to explain what disability studies is about is to use my two hands. If my left hand represents society and my right hand, balled in a fist, represents disabled people, we would all agree there should be a good fit. Disabled people should fit in society, right? We could all get along. Everybody should get along, right? Where we may disagree, though, as a society, is how to achieve that fit and what that fit looks like. And one of the things that disability studies does is instead of looking at how we can, quote, help disabled people or people with special needs to fit in, like make them better, make them stronger, make them more like other non-disabled people, one of the ways we can do this is to, instead of focusing on disabled people solely, is to focus on society and to look at the left hand, the social structures, from the perspective of disabled people. And if you look at the social landscape from this perspective, you can look at all sorts of things, like, let's name my fingers, okay? Okay, we can look at how different people respond to disabled people. We can look at transportation. We can look at education. What else?
Maybe one aspect would be dance, like you were saying.
Dance, we can look at dance.
Like inspiration and things that both disabled people and people without disabilities can do together.
Right, okay. And we can look at laws. We can look at literature. How do books that you read represent disabled characters? And are they people you want to hang out with? Are they weird? Are they strange? Are they alienating? You know? Movies. How do movies represent disabled people?
Sometimes as not as much of a person, as not as much as a main character as other characters.
So, now I have a question for you. I was thinking about this upstairs. I'm going to turn this back to you, not for something for you to answer right now, although you've been answering, but for something for you to think about. As you go out in the world, and share this with your friends, as you go out in the world, look at the landscape around you. Where do you see disabled people? Are they in charge? Are they people of influence? Are they lawyers, doctors, presidents, chief cooks and bottle washers, or are they on the sidelines? And is that because disabled people are incapable of doing those jobs, or is it because others believe they're incapable of doing those jobs, or is it because they're not given the opportunity to do those jobs? So you can yourselves look at this. You can look at this hand. You can look at the problems. You can look at the obstacles. You can see them every day.
And I think to top this off or add one thing to it, and that fits exactly into the model Simi just explained. We were very happy that the film came, was accepted and selected into the social justice competition. And we were originally had 2 screenings at the museum, which you probably know the screening room, 120, 130 seats, is with steep, ramp down to the podium, and then there in the back, on each side, 2 bays for wheelchairs. So that means, you can fit 4 wheelchairs into that room, and that's it. Mm-hmm. We even didn't say something. The festival was so smart that they suddenly realized, oh, we, selected a film about disability, and there's, you know, access and chair users, a big issue. So they called us 2 weeks into, you know, the process before and said, listen, do you agree? We think we need to change this. And so they, you know, asked around, collected money, moved the second screening to tonight's venue, the Lobero Theater, and they needed money because they're removing 3 rows of seats in the theater so that wheelchairs can fit in there. We hope, and so made the theater accessible for a bigger crowd of chair users. You know, usually that ain't happen. And, you know, if most of the chair users, and it will be curious tonight, you know, how many come, because the festival made lots of advertisement about that, and the Social Justice Fund. So, you know, maybe there are more, maybe less, because wheelchair users usually know, you know, when I'm going to a theater, it may be accessible, there may be 3, 4 spots, because we are not a crowd in theaters. But, you know, it would be great if tonight there may be, you know, 4, 5, 7, or 10 chair users, which would, or 30, and that would show, you know, there is a need for.
So, if you could go back to the day you were injured, what would you tell your newly disabled self?
That's a great question. That you will find community, that you will like being part of this community, that you will love being part of this community, that you will have an exciting life, and that using a wheelchair is sometimes a nuisance and sometimes a sad thing and sometimes a inconsequential thing, sometimes an impossible thing. But I think overall, as I look at my life and my sweet husband and my family and my friends and my community, I could not in any possible way have imagined the life I'm having from that perspective, and it would have been great. And I think one of the things that has changed and is changing and needs to change is that the more integrated the society is, the more disabled people that are around, when someone becomes newly disabled, they have a point of reference. I knew no one. I'd never met anybody that did anything cool that was a disabled person. They were just people that were kind of on the sidelines. So the more central disabled people are to the universe, the more models that kids with disabilities growing up or people newly disabled have to imagine a life that's different than one that might have been 30 or 40 years ago and more.
Going along with what you just said, I remember in the movie you also talked about how one doctor in the hospital room said there were a lot of veterans coming back from the war that were disabled, so you had a better chance of finding a husband. Do you think that perspective has changed a lot maybe in the medical world as well as in the, I guess, just society in general?
It's hard to say. You know, I mean, I think he was a very narrow thinker, you know, and it was also the notion that disabled people would only be acceptable partners to other disabled people, and also that the converse of that is that, you know, maybe I would have found or could have found another disabled man. I'm prone to like men, another disabled man who was disabled, and that would have been fine. It was just the notion that he put out that was my destiny.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was really great.
Guys.
You are very great best interviews.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Actually, the best interview we've had since we landed here.